Hello, I'm Pastor Dale,
And I'm Martha.
and we're staff pastors at a large church in California, USA. Our last name is Rose, like the flower.
We've been using Fresh Hope for over 6 years. Our son, after graduating from college where he prepared to be a pastor, had a complete total mental breakdown, ended up hospitalized, and dealt with this from 1997 until his untimely death in 2014. During that time, he went to many support groups, and none of them were faith based. There were none at that time. There are still very, very few today. And he would come home after going to one of those support groups and feel worse than when he went because there was no hope there. It was just how bad things were and how badly things were going to be in the future. They're just going to get worse. And so when Fresh Hope came along, we were thrilled and he was thrilled that finally there was something that would teach that our hope in Jesus Christ is what sees us through these difficult times.
You don't have to be a professional to be a facilitator with Fresh Hope. You only have to have a heart for the hurting. And I know that surely that is you. You wouldn't be attending this class unless you had a heart for the hurting, or maybe you have a diagnosis. One thing that we have learned is that there's a stigma attached to mental health issues. And Fresh Hope believes we've got to break the silence. We've been quiet long enough about mood disorders and mental health issues. So all you have to do is have a heart for the hurting, and it becomes so simplistic just to reach out in love to those who are hurting because of their diagnoses. Or maybe they don't even have a diagnosis, but they know something is not just right. It's those people that we invite to come to our Fresh Hope meetings. Right now, with the pandemic, we're meeting online, but we have found that, in fact, meeting online, like you will naturally be doing, I suppose, our numbers have increased, and the numbers are only growing. And in fact, this week, we expect to have 4 or 5 people who are with us that are just wanting to have more information. So God bless you for wanting to be a part of this program.
And after you've completed your training, you can adapt your group to fit your people. As long as you stay within the guidelines of Fresh Hope. And unfortunately, there are not that many Fresh Hope groups. And so even during this time of the pandemic, we have had people from other states that have been joining our weekly groups because there are no Fresh Hope groups in their area. And so I'm sure this will be the same thing for you, that you'll find people from far, far away that are coming and joining you because they're so excited to have people who care enough to be concerned about them and help them live a full, rich life in spite of having a mental health diagnosis.
Your training may take 7 or 8 sessions, but it's not difficult. And the main thing to understand is the 6 tenets. They are foundational to our teaching. It's what the whole program is based on. It's what you'll find in your textbook that you have. The textbook is, in fact, the 6 tenets, and it's a valuable tool, and it's so easily taught. It doesn't take a degree. It doesn't take a lot of expertise and verbal skills. Just reading the materials for a guide would be sufficient. But there's so much more that you're going to learn in the process.
And don't be discouraged if your group starts out very small, even with only 1 or 2 people. As the word spreads and you grow, you'll be amazed. And those 1 or 2 people that begin with you will be thrilled because they're finding the answers and the hope that they need to get through each and every day, especially during this time that we're all living through now, through the pandemic. A time as never before in the lives of any of us, regardless of your age, whether you're young, mid-aged, or in your senior years, as we are. We've never experienced anything like this. And we're finding more and more people being affected mentally because of that and looking for help. So whether you start out small or you start out large, do your best and be there to extend the hand of hope and the hope through Jesus Christ to those that are hurting.
And one of your goals should be to break the silence and end the stigma that has for so long been attached to mood disorders, and people don't want to talk about it. And in some cultures, it's worse than in others. But even today, there are people who just don't want to talk about it. And churches who should be talking about it the most aren't talking about it at all. And pastors too often want to associate mood disorders and mental health things with the demonic. And it's so frustrating to see that out in the community where some ministers want to attach the demonic to legitimate conditions that have been diagnosed medically. We just need to realize that it's not that at all. No matter what you have been told in the past, no matter what your church might teach, we need to be careful and who we listen to. When our son was first diagnosed, we went to every revival, every special service, everywhere, and at each of them, he raised his hand for salvation. He went forward for prayer. And I remember one time especially, we went to a revival at a church near us, not the same denomination, and they believed a little different than us. And sure enough, at the end of the service, he raised his hand for salvation, and he went forward for prayer. And pretty soon somebody came and got him and took him to what I presumed was a prayer room. And he was there for a long time. And this was a large church. There were 500 or 600 people there that night. And then all of a sudden I look up and they have him in the baptistry. And they're baptizing him because he hadn't been baptized in the way their church believed. So they thought he wasn't even a Christian. And then he left there, and it was a little while before somebody came and got me and brought me into the office. They didn't know that I was a pastor. They didn't know who I was. But they said to me, "We have taken care of all of the problems. We cast out all of the demons, and he's going to be fine." My son was excited, and finally somebody has found out what's wrong, and it's going to be okay. The next day I wrote that pastor, and I said, "You know what? You've done a great disservice to my son. You'll never know how much damage you have done." It was about a year later, and I was at the hospital with one of our police officers. I was a chaplain with our police department, and his son had died. And along with him was his ex-wife, who attended that other church that I just described to you, and her pastor was there. So it was just the four of us. But there came a time where it was just he and I, the pastor from that church, and me. And he looks at me and he says, "Can you ever forgive us for what we did to your son?" Our hope is that more people will realize that this Yes, it is a spiritual issue because the enemy likes to beat up on people with mood disorder. So it's very much a spiritual issue. But we need to end the silence and break the stigma. And God bless you for plugging in and being a part of Fresh Hope.
And understanding that our brain is an organ just like our heart, just like our lungs, just like all the other organs in our body, and that it can get sick just like those. There is no shame or stigma associated with cancer or heart disease or diabetes or any other disease that your body can have. And it should be the same with mental health issues. No stigma, no shame. So thank you so much for taking this step to be trained to facilitate a Fresh Hope group where you live and reach out to those that are hurting. God bless you.
And thank you to Samantha for inviting
Yes.
us to take part in this. She is such a trooper, doing such a good work for the Lord there in all Latin American countries. God bless you. Have a blessed day.